This is a video of our first set of notes to begin the year, Geography 101. Why is it 101? Because it's going to be very basic stuff. We're just going to cover the continents. But I'm making this video so that you guys can all review ahead of our quiz, which we will be taking next class. All right. So hopefully this is helpful for you. I'm going to go over everything fairly quickly. But of course, if you have any questions, you could always shoot me an email or leave me a comment on Google Classroom. You can find these notes on Google Classroom. So just go there. It's the assignment that says Geography 101. And let's just get started right now. So the first point I want to make evident to everybody is that while maps are great and we use them every single day, when we really want to get an accurate depiction of what our world looks like, nothing really beats a globe, right? Maps are always going to be flat images of our world, and since our world is not flat, it always leads to some sort of distortions. While maps can be accurate as far as using them for navigation and stuff like that, it's pretty legendary, the crazy proportion issues that maps create. When you've seen maps that makes Greenland look almost the size of Africa and stuff like that, the North and South poles always look bigger than they should, and the center of the map always looks much smaller than they should. And a much more accurate representation is going to be a globe. So if you have a globe, you have benefit of having a globe at home or something like that. That's really what it looks like. You will notice that Africa, for example, and the Pacific Ocean are way bigger than they look on any given map. So I just want to bring that point home, and you will see that on your quiz. A globe is going to be much more accurate than any map you can look up. But as far as that goes, let's go into each individual continent now at this point. So we'll begin with the largest of all continents, which of course is Asia. So there's only a few things I'm going to cover of every continent. Mainly, I'm going to focus on the people, the size, and some important things that we'll need going forward as we go throughout our school year in world history, right? So Asia is the largest of all the continents, over 17 million square miles, and it's so massive that most of the people in the world live in Asia. There are more people living in Asia than all of the other continents combined. And one of the main reasons why this is the case is because the two most populated countries in the world, China and India, are both inside of the Asian continent. China contains, and we're estimating here obviously, but around 1.7 billion people. And India contains around 1.2 billion. You add up the people that live in China and India, that's more than half of the world's population. So yes, basically 1 out of 2 people on the planet today is either living in China or in India. And that's kind of crazy. And that's not even mentioning some of the other countries in Asia that are, some of the most populated countries that exist on our planet, such as Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Indonesia, right? But just make sure you remember that not only is Asia the most populated, it is also the largest continent that exists. And as far as our course is concerned, 3 of the world's largest religions were all started in Asia. And we're going to cover all 3 of those religions throughout the year. Those 3 religions are also the 3 most popular religions, such as Christianity, which has around 2 billion followers. It began with a man named Jesus in what is today the Levant or Israel. And then also Islam, which has 1.6 billion followers, the second largest religion in the world. And that began with a man named Muhammad in the Arabian Peninsula. And then the third largest religion in the world, Hinduism. Hinduism is so ancient that we actually aren't sure who or where it began, but it definitely made a home in the Indian subcontinent, which is also in Asia. Other major religions that got started in Asia also include Buddhism and Judaism, which we will be mentioning throughout the school year. But I think it's something that you need to remember. 3 major religions all got started in Asia. In total, there are 48 nations in Asia, and I'm not going to be able to cover all that, but some major cities that you should remember are Tokyo, Japan, Tokyo being the most populated city in Asia, Shanghai, China, the most populated city in China, and Delhi or New Delhi, the capital and most populated city in India. All right. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of other cities in Asia, but those are the 3 I'd like you to remember moving forward. All right, now on to the next continent. We have Africa. What should we know about Africa? Well, it's the second largest continent in the world. The only continent bigger than Africa is Asia. It contains 54 countries. which is even more countries than Asia. Obviously, that's because Asia has really large countries. So the countries in Africa are a little smaller, but it still has a ton. And the most populated country in Africa, as of recording this, is Nigeria. And I gotta say this. Every now and then I'll hear people say that Africa, or at least talk about Africa as if it is one country that couldn't be any further from the truth. As we see, there's tons and tons of countries in Africa. Africa is a very diverse continent, and so it is helpful sometimes to refer to it, it's splitting it into regions. The two main regions we're going to refer to throughout the school year are going to be North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. North Africa, you basically, obviously, it's in the north, but it's very different from Sub-Saharan Africa in the point that it is basically a large desert. It's the home of the largest desert in the world, the Sahara, and it is very much just a dry, arid region. Obviously, not all of North Africa is desert. There are areas around the Nile River, for example, or along the Mediterranean coast that are not as dry. But yeah, that's basically what makes North Africa different. We're going to focus on this a lot. It's going to end up being the home of some of the Muslim empires that we're going to focus on. Countries like Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, they're all in North Africa. Now, Sub-Saharan Africa is kind of the opposite, right? In Sub-Saharan Africa, that's where you will have a lot of tropical rainforest, savanna, grasslands. That's where the African wildlife kind of explodes. So when you think of, the Serengeti or an African safari, it's going to be based in Sub-Saharan Africa. And this is by far the larger portion of Africa. And even this region can be split into smaller regions. But these are the two regions in Africa that we will be referring to. We'll talk here about the kingdoms of Ghana and Mali by the time we get to the second market period. All right, a couple of things you need to know about Africa along with this is that the two major religions are Christianity and Africa. Obviously, there's a lot more religions than that, but by and large, these are the two major religions. And three major cities that you should take note of are Lagos, the largest city in all of Africa, also the capital of Nigeria, Cairo, the capital of Egypt, and Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Congo and Kinshasa are the fastest growing city and country in the world. So don't be surprised if Kinshasa ends up becoming the largest city in Africa very soon. All right. Now, going from the two largest continents in the world to one of the smaller continents, we have Europe. Now, even though Europe is actually the second smallest continent, it's only bigger than Oceania, which we'll get to shortly, it still has 44 countries inside of it, right? And that's a lot. And so we're going to talk about Europe a lot as we talk about world history, because given that there are so many different nations and peoples and languages and religions in Europe in such a small space, Europe naturally becomes the home of some of the largest, most impactful wars in our history. So you've definitely heard of World War I and II, which all began in Europe, the Napoleonic Wars. There's so little territory for so many different groups of people. It just naturally leads to war. And so we're going to talk about it a lot as we move forward. But other things you should know about Europe, the most populated country in Europe technically is Germany. And I say technically because you could consider Russia to be the most populated country in Europe, but Russia is both a part of Europe and Asia. So it's kind of like, which one does it belong to? The reason that happens is because Russia is the largest country in the world by land area. Like, it's huge. A lot of people claim to be European because some of the big cities in Russia, like Moscow and St. Petersburg, are in the European side of things. But most of Russia is actually located in Asia. There are some people that even refer to the two continents as Eurasia, because a country like Russia is in both. And it gets a little sketchy where the dividing line between Europe and Asia is. And Russia is not even the only country. Turkey technically is also considered to be both a part of Europe and Asia. Speaking of Turkey, it is home to the most populated city in Europe, which is Istanbul. And Moscow is the second largest city in Europe, while London is the third most populated city in Europe, which is in the United Kingdom. Obviously, there are other major cities in Europe that you probably are already aware of, such as Paris in France, or Barcelona in Spain, Rome in Italy, or Berlin in Germany. But I want you to remember those three cities. All right. Now, going over to the other side of the world, the Western Hemisphere, there are only two continents here, and we have the Americas, right? North and South. And we'll begin with North America. It is the third largest continent in the world, just behind Asia and Africa. And it contains 23 countries, which sometimes is kind of shocking to people, mainly because when many people think of North America, they'll think of Canada and the United States. And that's basically because 80% of the entire continent is just these two countries. These are two of the world's largest countries. The only country larger than Canada is Russia. So, yeah, a lot of times people kind of don't notice that there's a whole bunch of other countries in these two sub-regions of North America, which you do need to be aware of. We have Central America, which is just south of Mexico, and it's made up of 7 countries that connect Mexico to South America. And then we also have the Caribbean, or the Caribbean Sea, right? And here is lots and lots of islands, and most of the countries of North America are actually located here in this Caribbean region. Now, the 3 most spoken languages in North America are English, Spanish, and French. And you're going to notice all 3 of those languages are European because most of the Americas, almost all of the Americas, I should say, were colonized by European nations, and eventually those languages began to dominate. English is spoken in places like the United States and Canada or the Bahamas, while Spanish is spoken, for example, obviously in Mexico or in Central America like Guatemala, Panama, Nicaragua, places like that. And French is spoken, for example, in Haiti and parts of Canada like Quebec. All right, 3 major cities you should be aware of in North America. We have Mexico City, obviously in Mexico, New York City in the United States, and Toronto in Canada. All right. Moving on, let's now talk about South America, right? So South America we're getting to the smaller continents at this point, 4th largest in the world, and it only contains 14 countries. And part of that is because Brazil is a huge, massive country. It actually takes up more than half of the entire continent. It's one of the largest countries in the world. I think it shares a border with almost every other country in South America except for like 1. But yeah, South America has 14 countries. The 2 major languages here are Spanish and Portuguese. Portuguese, of course, being spoken in Brazil only. And then every other country basically speaks Spanish. There are some other countries, for example, in French Guinea, they speak French. Suriname, they speak Dutch. Guyana, they speak English. And obviously, there's always some tribal languages here. Important cities you should be aware of in South America. You have Sao Paulo, the largest city in Brazil. Lima, the largest city in Peru, and Bogota, the largest city in Colombia. So that's South America. We'll definitely be talking about North and South America later on this school year. Moving on, we now have the smallest of all the continents. And I know a lot of you guys want to say Australia, but we're going to refer to it as Oceania. Why do we do that? Because Australia is a country in its own right. So it can be kind of confusing if we keep referring to Australia as a continent and a country. And the reality is that Oceania is really just a big chunk of the Pacific Ocean. Every single country located in this region is an island. And even though there are hundreds and hundreds of islands in this area, 14 actual independent nations are located here. And by far, the 2 largest are Australia and New Zealand. So you guys can be aware of that. But obviously, there's some other places you might have heard of, such as maybe Tasmania, Fiji, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, countries like that. 3 major cities in Oceania. We have Sydney, which is the largest city in Australia, Auckland, the largest city in New Zealand, and Honolulu, which, yes, it's a part of Hawaii, which is a part of the United States. But Hawaii is so far into the Pacific Ocean that it actually fits into this Oceania region, not really as much a part of North America. But those are the 3 cities here. And then lastly, we have Antarctica. It is the 3rd smallest, so it is bigger than Europe and Oceania. But we leave Antarctica for last because it is the one continent in the world where there are no permanent civilizations, settlements, cities. There's nothing like that. Now, there are obviously human establishments there for researchers or scientists to go down to to Antarctica, and but it's impossible for anyone to live in Antarctica like completely, right? You can't really grow much there. It's dangerous. There's no hospitals set up there, so you're really on your own in Antarctica. we didn't even know that Antarctica existed really until 1820, 200 years ago. The first expedition landed successfully in Antarctica. It was a Russian expedition. People always had a feeling there was some continent down there, but it was just so difficult to traverse the dangerous Southern Ocean and all that. People have died trying to get to Antarctica, so it's not a very friendly place for people. The only living things you're going to find in Antarctica are going to be penguins. So if you're a big fan of like Happy Feet, for example, that was set in Antarctica, and some seals. That's about it. They're the only real like human, not human, living things that can stay in Antarctica, right? So like I said, it was a very brief kind of summary of every single continent. There will be nothing on your quiz that isn't already a part of these slides, so make sure you get this. And if you have any further questions, please email me. And don't forget, you do have to complete that homework assignment that just is called the 7 continents. Make sure you have all those questions answered. And if you need help, again, you can shoot me an email. Hopefully this was helpful for all you guys, and I'll make another video for the next set of notes when we begin ancient Rome. And that'll be our first unit. All right. So I'll talk to you guys later.